Hi, it's Stephen Hughes, your hardship real estate pro here again with Jordan Smith over at Equity Real Estate. Last time we had Jordan here on the channel, we were talking about mobile homes. But today we are going to talk about senior transition housing, and we'll probably tie in a recent transaction we worked on together. So, senior transition housing, that's really, if I were going to sum it up, it's someone over the age of 65 that needs to sell their traditional home to downsize into something more accommodating like a condo or a mobile home, or really what's much more prevalent, especially for a lot of our baby boomers and silent generation, is selling that traditional home and moving into a independent living community, an assisted living community, or a memory care community. And I'll tell you, these are real estate transitions that are very unique. They have their own set of challenges, and they are not for just your average real estate agent or realtor. Really, you need someone who is multifaceted, someone who maybe is a broker. Yes, they're a real estate agent, they can list a house, but they also have connections to investors or they're an investor themselves. Jordan, I think we should just talk about the recent transaction we did. And through telling the story, I think people will understand a bit more of what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stephen was at a senior conference and he actually met the seller at this conference and they had expressed a desire to get into one of these facilities, I guess you could say. And the way I would describe the facility, because I got a tour when I met the sellers to pick up keys, it's basically a cruise ship on the ground. And so these are really nice facilities. And their biggest thing was they wanted to offload the house and needed to make that jump. So a lot of it was just how we structured the deal to accommodate them. So on our end, with writing the offer, we provided a dumpster to make it a little bit easier because when you're going from a 3,400 square foot house into a home with, I don't know, maybe 800, 1,000 square feet, I'm not sure the exact size, but significantly downsizing, one of the pain points was, what do we do with everything we've accumulated that family doesn't really want? And it can be a hassle. So we utilized our connections to bring in a dumpster, actually multiple dumpsters. We had to dump it a couple times to give them the ability to basically clear things out over the course of this transaction.
The personal property is the biggest hurdle, especially for seniors. Because here's the thing: we're both real estate agents. We're both technically realtors. I've gotten to where I like calling myself a real estate professional. I'm a principal broker now, which kind of puts me in a upper echelon of agents. But in this case, they could have listed their home and made more money.
Yeah,
They really
exactly.
could have. But the home still needed some updates. They had all that stuff because the home's it can accrue more value after it's been fixed up and flipped. But in their situation, and we don't want to get into personal details. Their situation, really, they needed a quick sale
Right.
without the hassle of listing and open marketing. And what we have found in senior transition is that a lot of these home sales actually need that because, like you said, they've accumulated so much stuff. Sometimes there's been one partner that's already passed.
Right.
Sometimes you have no kids or other family that are around to help, or they are around, but they're not very helpful. There's like family drama. Do any of you have family drama? Right. I think we all can relate to that. And just the absolute emotional and stressful overwhelm. It is so overwhelming. I think Jordan said it in another conversation we had is sometimes the ease is worth, taking a little less money. But as realtors, we'll always encourage people to list if they can. But gosh, I mean, maybe you can unpack that a little bit because if you say like investor or flipper with seniors, people think you're trying to take advantage of grandma.
Yeah, exactly. And you do see that sometimes too. So you got to be very careful because, the state, the division, and really anybody who's honest and hardworking, they don't want to see seniors being taken advantage of. There are a lot of scams that it seems like are targeted towards them. You hit the nail on the head though. It's that ease of sometimes not making as much, but having that ease. In this particular transaction, after roughly like a 7-day due diligence, we actually wrote into the contract that we would give them $25,000 So we did $25,000 hard earnest money after due diligence. So after 7 days, the title company cut them a check, even though we had closed on the transaction. And they were able to use that to pay for some movers to come in and move their personal items and to pay their first couple of months at the new housing facility. So deals can be structured, and in a traditional transaction, there's no way all of these things could have lined up. So I think that can be the benefit. And then they didn't have to go through the hassle of having pictures taken of the property and having it perfectly staged. And it's tough to postulate how much more you can sell for versus the hassle of getting there, especially if you're a little bit older and you don't have as much strength. You may not have the assistance. You may not be able to lift heavy furniture and things like that. We do offer these as, options, but as Steven said, sometimes the best option is to put it on the MLS. So when you meet with somebody like Steven, he can present various options. And I think that's the biggest thing for seniors is you have options, and presenting those options. Hey, you can put this on the MLS. You can put it on as is on the MLS, take pictures, even with the stuff in the house, and just say, hey, we're selling this as is. You can work with investors per se, and they're not all created equal. Some are a lot more on the up and up than others. We've learned that. Or they could have gone through the process of reaching out to friends and family and said, hey, come over here, help us clean this out. Let's get it all cleaned out. And I've done a number of these where, mom and dad have passed, and I finished up one in Washington Terrace where I coordinated all of my crews to come in and fix the house up. The son, daughter, and other daughter, they still own the house through the trust, but I basically gave them my contractors and my crew to come in and fix it up. And after a 6-month fix up, we listed it. It would have gone a lot faster, but they had to bounce all these ideas off one another. With this particular deal, Steve and I worked. My crew has been in there, about 2 weeks now, and they will be finished this Friday with kind of this fix up of this home and getting it back on the market.
And it helps the new people who buy it because now they don't have to do updates. And the home's like it's move-in ready. It's like a new construction home, and all these things have been fixed and cleaned up that wouldn't happen if an investor wasn't involved. And I think one of the things that people think of, because I know the Department of Commerce in Utah, and then this was even like at the senior expos, there's all this stuff about preventing scams for seniors. If you are looking to sell, because here's the thing, obviously I want people to hire. I mean, that's no joke. That's part of why we have the YouTube channel. But we also want to educate people. We want to guide people. I would say if you are going to work with an investor, go ahead and hire a real estate agent to at least represent you. Or I think even better, make sure you're getting more than one investor offer. And I would tell you, and Jordan could probably talk about this, an investor that also has a real estate license is in your best interest, because at that point, you can, if they do try to pull something, they have to get a state license. They have to basically answer to the Division of Real Estate. But because being an investor, you don't have to have a license, but a realtor does.
No, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And you'll go to some of these wholesale conferences or investor conferences where everybody there does not have a real estate license, and they'll actually discourage people from getting one. And the number one thing that they always say, because I've attended some of these and even been a guest speaker at some, is they're like, well, it comes with too much ethics. And that is just so odd to me to hear somebody say, oh, like ethics. If you're doing things on the up and up, it's disclosed, you're using the state approved real estate agreements. But where seniors and homeowners get into trouble is when they're working with an investor. And I've seen this time and again, an investor will tie up the property. You know what the first thing that investor goes and does is they go and they put a notice of interest. They file a notice of interest with the property, because sometimes sellers are like, hey, I'm not going to do this. And then all of a sudden they do get somebody who's in their court. They hire a real estate professional, somebody fingerprinted, somebody background checked, somebody who every 2 years completes hundreds of hours of continuing education and takes an oath of upholding their clients. And that person goes to list the house, and all of a sudden, boom, you got to pay this dude who tied up your home on a contract on a napkin. And they barely put up any earnest money. It's laughable. They'll put up $100 on a $400,000 home as earnest money. I mean, what skin do these people have in the game? And what's even more laughable is they'll go and tell this person that they're under contract on, and they'll say, "Hey, we need to bring some people in to look at the house." And they will hold an open house of your house to sell the contract to somebody else. So basically, they're playing middleman with no skin in the game and selling off your equity. So Stephen hit it spot on. I've seen this so many times, and it's a huge thing. It's like, man, can we not get the state to be a little bit more involved to protect people on this? There is a benefit to hiring somebody who is a real estate agent for all those reasons I named.
It's funny you talk about the notice of interest because it's a lien against their house. The very first senior transaction I did, and I don't know if I've told you this, he had tried to sell and ended up I didn't know this until we had it on the market and pulled title. He had tried to sell it to an investor and it didn't work out, but that investor had a lien on the house, $20,000 lien. And these people would not remove it. And it just ended up being a big fight. And this was in, yeah, a pretty hot time. And I was getting multiple showings and offers. And it was just like, yeah, that was eye opening because they took advantage of this old guy. You know, he was moving into memory care. He was a veteran. He had fought in Korea and Vietnam. And it honestly, it's disgusting. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I never want to be associated with that. And I know Jordan's not associated with that. What we're about is trying to give people options and guidance so that they actually can transition gracefully with ease and with comfort. Because I'll tell you, I've lived through it. I don't know if Jordan has, where you had a family member pass and you had to liquidate their house. I've lived through that. So I've personally experienced it, not just helping families, but I've even personally dealt with it. And honestly, I wish that when we had done it, we had sold it to an investor because the way we did it was miserable. It was nights and weekends of all of really unnecessary work, of cleaning out stuff that meant nothing.
Oh, and so many times that's where so much of the friction comes in. There you are celebrating mom, dad, grandma's life, and when they pass peacefully. And then right after that, it's like, okay, it comes to resolving some of the financial things. And God, there is friction. I've seen friction over a cuckoo clock. I've seen friction over a watch that was grandpa's. So just sometimes having somebody there who's a neutral third party to assist and provide some guidance. Another thing that we connect seniors to is estate sales too. So there's another avenue. And we don't have a preferred option. It's not like, oh, we only want to buy your house or we only want to list your house. Let's do whatever's best, but let's present all the options and let families and let's let sellers really decide.
I agree, especially if they're moving into a community. You want a senior mover organizer, specialist,
Yeah.
manager. It's all kinds of titles. Basically, someone who's going to physically pack the stuff that they are taking to this new home. And they do that with the people who are moving. That's mom or dad, whoever. And they also coordinate with the community, the move in, because all that has to be managed in a special way. And they have to make sure that the right stuff is moved over there at the right time and that nothing gets broken. It isn't like your normal mover that's just fast move. You can't do that with mom stuff. These people have to actually take a lot of care and they can't just show up to one of these communities like it's an apartment complex that your son right after college went and rented and for his first job. You know what I'm talking about. It's not
There
like
is
that.
secure. A lot of these places have a security guard in the front and it's monitored 24/7 and there's special codes and cards to get in. There's all kinds of levels of skill when it comes to doing this. And having those connections and that networking is so crucial. When we first got into doing this, no, we didn't have the estate aspect. We didn't have the movers connected. It's over time learning these things. And what I always tell somebody is there's really two ways to learn. You can learn from what somebody else has experienced or go out and make the mistake and learn yourself. And it's a lot easier to learn from somebody else.
Yeah, it is a lot easier. Although I feel like most of my learning has been through falling on my butt a few times. It's funny, but I thought we'd talk more about the transaction. But when we think about it, honestly, it was really easy. It was just that easy to help these people. And I'm not trying to diminish it. It's just, yeah, it was just we got them the money, helped them move. And now that home's being fixed and it'll go to a brand new family. It'll be like a brand new construction home. And it's just like a win for so many people. Gosh, their kids were really happy too. I don't know if I mentioned that to you. The daughter especially just thrilled because they didn't have to go through the hassle of helping mom and dad. we were able to
Yeah.
facilitate that.
In regards to these sellers, they were probably some of the nicest people I've ever met, and had a chance the night before to get keys from them to do a final walkthrough and inspection of the house. And they were so worried about it all. And I said, no, it's all going to go smooth. And they've heard the horror stories of people jerking them around and extending closings and settlements. And when we gave them our word that this was going to be done, it was done. And everything we said was going to happen, happened. We said, there's going to be a dumpster there. There's a dumpster there. And I think the single biggest word is trust. This older generation, they're so trusting. And, I think we owe it to them to give them a reason to trust us. And so many people who don't, and working with the right people, that's what you'll get. You'll get this level of trust. And I think that was the difference in this transaction. I trusted Steven, he trusted me, and the sellers trusted us, and it all went really well.
Just overall, if you're watching this, we would love to hear your story, any of your thoughts. You can comment below. If you know someone who's a senior that just needs any sort of consultation about housing, we do free consultations. We never want to force anyone to sell a home or move into a certain community, but the consultation can help you make some decisions for the future, maybe if it's even a few years down the road. Otherwise, I'd say just keep watching the YouTube channel because we'll have a lot more senior content over the next few weeks. I even have some people who I'm interviewing in Kansas and Missouri that are pretty big wigs. I have one lady, which you've probably already seen her video. She does a PBS show for seniors. So we're hoping that you can come here and learn a whole lot in order to help yourself. Maybe you're in that situation, but most likely you probably have a mom and dad in that situation. Thanks again. Really don't have much to say. My contact information is in the box below, and so is Jordan's. Otherwise, we're going to say bye, and we'll see you next time.